madhushvare. Grihi tako bane tako shada hari bolu tako. Wherever you may live, in a house or in a van, under a bridge, just chant Hare Krishna. And Suke duke bhulo nako vadane harinam korore. Whether you're happy, whether you're distressed, whatever material nature imposes upon you, just go on chanting Hare Krishna. It's the only solution. Nothing else works. Maya jale bada hoye achumiche kaj loe. You've been caught by the net that Maya has set that catches those living entities who want to be wayward from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ekono Chaitanya Pe Radha Madhav Nam Bolore. And you've hardly taken the opportunity. So now take this opportunity to chant the names of Radha Madhav. Jivana Hoilo Shesh. Your life can end at any minute. Na Bhaji Le Rishikesha. And you have not worshipped the Lord of the senses. So Bhaktivinoda Upadesh, the advice of Bhaktivinoda, Ek bar nam rashe matore. At least one time try to get a taste that is so sweet, it's intoxicating. Try for that one time, get that taste. So at the break, some devotee, Samyapras, was saying how he found or reading, sitting and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam to be transformational. It's medicinal. And if you take a large quantity of it, you don't know what's going to happen. And I've seen so many times devotees in this little context here of this compound, and you just think, oh yeah, we're just hearing Bhagavatam. But when you go out and look at the world again, you see through different eyes. You can't help but can't be otherwise, because the katha is so powerful that Prabhupada's putting forward. There's nothing like it, his purports. But to speak of the Bhagavatam itself, the combination of those together, just sitting and hearing. And we heard earlier that don't worry too much, just hear. It all goes in. Said even though the holes of the ear appear small, they're actually inside. It's as big as the sky. You can never fill it up and say, I heard too much. Mana?
Yesterday I was thinking of that passage, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when a ghost had taken over a tree and he sat down for, how many days was that, chanting Bhagavatam?
I don't remember how many days.
I think it was like 20 days. Anyway, at the end there was a huge explosion, and the ghost Rakshasa, I guess it's a Brahma Rakshasa.
Yeah, well, definitely this bread will do a little damage. See if we can't break. She's saying if you want to maintain your, as Rupa Goswami says, your family, friendship, and love, then don't go there. Don't go to the bank room. Don't go there. Don't go to Govardhan and Kartik in here. Okay, too late now. They medevaced him home. All he could say was, what was Lord Chaitanya saying? He was saying, Jaja Gagapari Mumu. Jaja Gagapari Mumu. Jaja Gagapari Mumu. Well, here we go. We're taking up the movements of the living entities, and we're on text number. If therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, he again... I'm so sorry. Everyone please forgive me. Is involuntary. Did I read the verse? I think I forgot everything we've read. If therefore the living entity again associates with the path of unrighteousness, influenced by sensually minded people engaged in the pursuit of sexual enjoyment and the gratification of the palate, he again goes to hell as before. It has been explained that the conditioned soul is put into the tamishra and tamishra hellish conditions, and after suffering there, he gets a hellish body like the dogs or hogs. After several such births, he again comes into the form of a human being. How the human being is born is also described by Kapila Dev. The human being develops in the mother's abdomen and suffers there and comes out again. After all these sufferings, if he gets another chance in a human body and wastes his valuable time in the association of persons who are concerned with sexual life and palatable dishes, then naturally he again glides down to the same tamishra and tamishra hells. Generally, people are concerned with the satisfaction of the tongue and the satisfaction of the genitals. That is material life. Material life means eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy, with no concern for understanding one's spiritual identity and the process of spiritual advancement. Since materialistic people are concerned with the tongue, belly, and genitals, if anyone wants to advance in spiritual life, he must be very careful about associating with such people. To associate with such materialistic men is to commit purposeful suicide in the human form of life. It is said, therefore, that an intelligent man should give up such undesirable association and should always mix with saintly persons. When he is in association with saintly persons, all his doubts about the spiritual expansion of life are eradicated, and he makes tangible progress on the path of spiritual understanding. It is also sometimes found that people are very much addicted to a particular type of religious faith. Hindus, Muslims, and Christians are faithful in their particular type of religion, and they go to the church, temple, or mosque, but unfortunately, they cannot give up the association of persons who are too much addicted to sex life and satisfaction of the palate. Here it is clearly said that one may officially be a religious man, but if he associates with such persons, then he is sure to slide down to the darkest region of hell. 33. He becomes devoid of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, spiritual intelligence, shyness, austerity, fame, forgiveness, control of the mind, control of the senses, fortune, and all such opportunities. Purport. Those who are too addicted to sex life cannot understand the purpose of the absolute truth, nor can they be clean in their habits, not to mention showing mercy to others. They cannot remain grave, and they have no interest in the ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is Krishna or Vishnu, but those who are addicted to sex life cannot understand that their ultimate interest is Krishna consciousness. Such people have no sense of decency, and even in public streets or public parks they embrace each other just like cats and dogs and pass it off in the name of lovemaking. Such unfortunate creatures can never become materially prosperous. Behavior like that of cats and dogs keeps them in the position of cats and dogs. They cannot improve any material condition, not to speak of becoming famous. Such foolish persons may even make a show of so-called yoga, but they are unable to control the senses and mind, which is the real purpose of yoga practice. Such people can have no opulence in their lives. In a word, they are very unfortunate. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization, and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. Purport. The restriction of association with such foolish persons is especially meant for those who are in the line of advancement of Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness involves developing the qualities of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, intelligence in spiritual knowledge, simplicity, material opulence, fame, forgiveness, and control of the mind and the senses. All these qualities are to be manifested with the progress of Krishna consciousness. But if one associates with a Shudra, a foolish person who is like a dancing dog in the hands of a woman, then he cannot make any progress. Lord Chaitanya has advised that any person who is engaged in Krishna consciousness and who desires to pass beyond material nescience must not associate himself with women or with persons interested in material enjoyment. For a person seeking advancement in Krishna consciousness, such association is more dangerous than suicide. 35. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship. What? Oh. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. Purport: attachment to women is so contaminating that one becomes attached to the condition of material life not only by the association of women but by the contaminated association of persons who are too attached to them. There are many reasons for our conditional life in the material world, but the topmost of all such causes is the association of women, as will be confirmed in the following stanzas. In Kali Yuga, association with women is very strong. In every step of life, there is association with women. If a person goes to purchase something, the advertisements are full of pictures of women. The physiological attraction for women is very great, and therefore people are very slack in spiritual understanding. The Vedic civilization, being based on spiritual understanding, arranges association with women very cautiously. Out of the 4 social divisions, the members of the first order, namely brahmachari, the third order, vanaprastha, and the fourth order, sannyas, are strictly prohibited from female association. Only in one order, the householder, is there license to mix with women under restricted conditions. In other words, attraction for women's association is the cause of the material conditional life. And anyone interested in being freed from this conditional life must detach himself from the association of women. 36. At the sight of his own daughter, Brahma was bewildered by her charms and shamelessly ran up to her in the form of a stag when she took the form of a hind. Lord Brahma's being captivated by the charms of his daughter and Lord Shiva's being captivated by the Mohini form of the Lord are specific instances which instruct us that even great demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva, what to speak of the ordinary conditioned soul, are captivated by the beauty of woman. Therefore, everyone is advised that one should not freely mix even with one's daughter or with one's mother or with one's sister, because the senses are so strong that when one becomes infatuated, the senses do not consider the relationship of daughter, mother, or sister. It is best, therefore, to practice controlling the senses by performing bhakti yoga, engaging in the service of Madan Mohan. Lord Krishna's name is Madan Mohan, for he can subdue the god Cupid or lust. Only by engaging in the service of Madan Mohan can one curb the dictates of Madan, Cupid. Otherwise, attempts to control the senses will fail. Amongst all kinds of living entities begotten by Brahma, namely men, demigods, and animals, none but the sage Narayan is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of a woman. Purport: the first living creature is Brahma himself, and from him were created sages like Marichi, who in their turn created Kashyapa Muni and others. And Kashyapa Muni and the Manus created different demigods and human beings, etc. But there is none among them who is not attracted by the spell of Maya in the form of woman. Throughout the entire material world, beginning from Brahma down to the small, insignificant creatures like the ant, everyone is attracted by sex life. That is the basic principle of this material world. Lord Brahma's being attracted by his daughter is the vivid example that no one is exempt from sexual attraction to women. Woman, therefore, is the wonderful creation of Maya, to keep the conditioned soul in shackles. 38. Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of woman, who, by the mere movement of her eyebrows, can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under her grip. Purport. There are many instances in the history of the world of a great conquerors being captivated by the charms of Cleopatra. One has to study the captivating potency of woman and man's attraction for that potency. From what source was this generated? According to Vedanta Sutra, we can understand that everything is generated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is enunciated here, Janmadyasya yataha. This means that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Person, Brahman, the Absolute Truth, is the source from whom everything emanates. The captivating power of woman and man's susceptibility to such attraction must also exist in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the spiritual world, and must be represented in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The Lord is the Supreme Person, the Supreme Male. As a common male wants to be attracted by a female, that propensity similarly exists in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also wants to be attracted by the beautiful features of a woman. Now the question is, if he wants to be captivated by such womanly attraction, would he be attracted by any material woman? It is not possible. Even persons who are in this material existence can give up womanly attraction if they are attracted by the Supreme Brahman. Such was the case with Haridas Thakur. A beautiful prostitute tried to attract him in the dead of night. But since he was situated in devotional service, in transcendental love of Godhead, Haridas Thakur was not captivated. Rather, he turned the prostitute into a great devotee by his transcendental association. This material attraction, therefore, certainly cannot attract the Supreme Lord. When he wants to be attracted by a woman, he has to create such a woman from his own energy. That woman is Radharani. It is explained by the Goswamis that Radharani is the manifestation of the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Supreme Lord wants to derive transcendental pleasure, he has to create a woman from his own internal potency. Thus, the tendency to be attracted by womanly beauty is natural because it exists in the spiritual world. In the material world, it is reflected pervertedly, and therefore there are so many inebrieties. Instead of being attracted by material beauty, if one is accustomed to be attracted by the beauty of Radharani and Krishna, then the statement of Bhagavad Gita, Param Drishva Nivartate, holds true. When one is attracted by the transcendental beauty of Radha and Krishna, he is no longer attracted by material feminine beauty. That is the special significance of Radha-Krishna worship. That is testified to by Yamunacharya. He says, since I have become attracted by the beauty of Radha and Krishna, when there is attraction for a woman or a memory of sex life with a woman, I at once spit on it, and my face turns in disgust. When we are attracted by Madan Mohan and the beauty of Krishna and his consorts, then the shackles of conditioned life, namely the beauty of a material woman, cannot attract us. 39. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman, for such a woman is declared in the scriptures to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. Purport. The culmination of yoga is full Krishna consciousness. This is affirmed in Bhagavad Gita. A person who is always thinking of Krishna in devotion is the topmost of all yogis. And in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also stated that when one becomes freed from material contamination by rendering devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can at that time understand the science of God. Here the word pratilabdhatma labha occurs. Atma means self, and labha means gain. Generally, conditioned souls have lost their atma, or self, but those who are transcendentalists have realized the self. It is directed that such a self-realized soul who aspires to the topmost platform of yogic perfection should not associate with young women. In the modern age, however, there are so many rascals who recommend that while one has genitals, he should enjoy women as much as he likes, and at the same time he can become a yogi. In no standard yoga system is the association of women accepted. It is clearly stated here that the association of women is the gateway to hellish life. The association of women is very much restricted in the Vedic civilization. Out of the 4 social divisions, the brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, 3 orders are strictly prohibited from the association of women. Only the grahastas or householders are given license to have an intimate relationship with a woman, and that relationship is also restricted for begetting nice children. If, however, one wants to stick to continued existence in the material world, he may indulge in female association unrestrictedly. 40. The woman created by the Lord is a representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting services must certainly know that this is the way of death, just like a blind well covered with grass. Purport: Sometimes it happens that a rejected well is covered by grass, and an unwary traveler who does not know the existence of the well falls down, and his death is assured. Similarly, association with a woman begins when one accepts service from her, because a woman is especially created by the Lord to give service to man. By accepting her service, a man is entrapped. If he is not intelligent enough to know that she is the gateway to hellish life, he may indulge in her association very liberally. This is restricted for those who aspire to ascend to the transcendental platform. Even 50 years ago in Hindu society, such association was restricted. A wife could not see her husband during the daytime. Householders even had different residential quarters. The internal quarters of a residential house were for the woman, and the external quarters were for the man. Acceptance of service rendered by a woman may appear very pleasing, but one should be very cautious in accepting such service, because it is clearly said that woman is the gateway to death or forgetfulness of oneself. She blocks the path to spiritual realization. 41. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. From this verse, it appears that a woman is also supposed to have been a man in her previous life, and due to his attachment to his wife, he now has the body of a woman. Bhagavad Gita confirms this. A man gets his next life's birth according to what he thinks of at the time of death. If someone is too attached to his wife, naturally he thinks of his wife at the time of death, and in his next life he takes the body of a woman. Similarly, if a woman thinks of her husband at the time of death, naturally she gets the body of a man in the next life. In the Hindu scriptures, therefore, women's chastity and devotion to man is greatly emphasized. A woman's attachment to her husband may elevate her to the body of a man in her next life, but a man's attachment to a woman will degrade him, and in his next life he will get the body of a woman. We should always remember, as it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, that both the gross and subtle material bodies are dresses. They are the shirt and coat of the living entity. To be either a woman or a man only involves one's bodily dress. The soul in nature is actually the material energy of the Supreme Lord. The soul in nature is actually the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Every living entity being classified as energy is supposed to be originally a woman, or one who is enjoyed. In the body of a man, there is a greater opportunity to get out of the material clutches. There is less opportunity in the body of a woman. In this verse, it is indicated that the body of a man should not be misused through forming an attachment to women, and thus becoming too entangled in material enjoyment, which will result in getting the body of a woman in the next life. A woman is generally fond of household prosperity, ornaments, furniture, and dresses. She is satisfied when the husband supplies all these things sufficiently. The relationship between man and woman is very complicated, but the substance is that one who aspires to ascend to the transcendental stage of spiritual realization should be very careful in accepting the association of a woman. In the stage of Krishna consciousness, however, such restriction of association may be slackened, because if a man's and a woman's attachment is not to each other but to Krishna, then both of them are equally eligible to get out of the material entanglement and reach the abode of Krishna. As is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, anyone who seriously takes to Krishna consciousness, whether in the lowest species of life or a woman, or of the less intelligent classes such as the mercantile or laborer class, will go back home, back to Godhead, and reach the abode of Krishna. A man should not be attached to a woman, nor should a woman be attached to a man. Both man and woman should be attached to the service of the Lord. Then there is the possibility of liberation from material entanglement for both of them. A woman, therefore, should consider her husband, her house, and her children to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. Purport. In these instructions of Lord Kapila Dev, it is explained that not only is woman the gateway to hell for man, but man is also the gateway to hell for woman. It is a question of attachment. A man becomes attached to a woman because of her service, her beauty, and many other assets. And similarly, a woman becomes attached to a man for his giving her a nice place to live, ornaments, dress, and children. It is a question of attachment for one another. As long as either is attached to the other for such material enjoyment, the woman is dangerous for the man, and the man is also dangerous for the woman. But if the attachment is transferred to Krishna, both of them become Krishna conscious. And then marriage is very nice. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore recommends anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate, from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2, 255. Man and woman should live together as householders in relationship with Krishna only for the purpose of discharging duties in the service of Krishna. Engage the children, engage the wife, and engage the husband, all in Krishna conscious duties. And then all these bodily and material attachments will disappear, since the via medium is Krishna. The consciousness is pure, and there is no possibility of degradation at any time. Saved by the bell. Due to his particular type of body, the materialistic living entity wanders from one planet to another, following fruitive activities. In this way, he involves himself in fruitive activities and enjoys the result incessantly. Purport. When the living entity is encaged in the material body, he is called Jiva Bhuta. And when he is free from the material body, he is called Brahma Bhuta. By changing his material body birth after birth, he travels not only in the different species of life, but also from one planet to another. Lord Chaitanya says that the living entities bound up by fruitive activities are wandering in this way throughout the whole universe. And if by some chance or by pious activities they get in touch with a bona fide spiritual master, by the grace of Krishna, then they get the seed of devotional service. After getting this seed, if one sows it within his heart and pours water on it by hearing and chanting, the seed grows into a big plant, and there are fruits and flowers which the living entity can enjoy, even in this material world. That is called the Brahma Bhuta stage. In his designated condition, a living entity is called materialistic, and upon being freed from all designations, when he is fully Krishna conscious, engaged in devotional service, he is called liberated. Unless one gets the opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master, by the grace of the Lord, There's no possibility of one's liberation from the cycle of birth and death in the different species of life and through the different grades of planets. 44. In this way, the living entity gets a suitable body with a material mind and senses, according to his fruit of activities. When the reactions of his particular activity come to an end, that end is called death. And when a particular type of reaction begins, that beginning is called birth. From time immemorial, the living entity travels in the different species of life and the different planets almost perpetually. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudrani maya. Under the spell of Maya, everyone is wandering throughout the universe on the carriage of the body offered by the material energy. Materialistic life involves a series of actions and reactions. It is a long film spool of actions and reactions, and one lifespan is just a flash in such a reactionary show. When a child is born, it is to be understood that his particular type of body is the beginning of another set of activities, and when an old man dies, it is to be understood that one set of reactionary activities is finished. We can see that because of different reactionary activities, one man is born in a rich family and another is born in a poor family, although both of them are born in the same place, at the same moment and in the same atmosphere. One who is carrying pious activity with him is given a chance to take his birth in a rich or pious family, and one who is carrying impious activity is given a chance to take birth in a lower, poor family. The change of body means a change to a different field of activities. Similarly, when the body of the boy changes into that of a youth, the boyish activities change into youthful activities. It is clear that a particular body is given to the living entity for a particular type of activity. This process is going on perpetually from a time which is impossible to trace out. Vaishnava poets say, therefore, anadi karma pale, which means that these actions and reactions of one's activity cannot be traced, for they may even continue from the last millennium of Brahma's birth to the next millennium. We have seen the example in the life of Narada Muni. In one millennium, he was the son of a maidservant, and in the next millennium, he became a great sage. When the eyes lose their power to see color or form due to morbid affliction of the optic nerve, the sense of sight becomes deadened. The living entity, who is the seer of both the eyes and the sight, loses his power of vision. In the same way, when the physical body, the place where perception of objects occur, is rendered incapable of perceiving, that is known as death. When one begins to view the physical body as one's very self, that is called birth. When one says, I see, this means that he sees with his eyes or with his spectacles. He sees with the instrument of sight. If the instrument of sight is broken or becomes diseased or incapable of acting, then he, as the seer, also ceases to act. Similarly, in this material body, at the present moment, the living soul is acting. And when the material body, due to its incapability to function, ceases, he also ceases to perform his reactionary activities. When one's instrument of action is broken and cannot function, that is called death. Again, when one gets a new instrument for action, that is called birth. This process of birth and death is going on every moment by constant bodily change. The final change is called death, and acceptance of a new body is called birth. That is the solution to the question of birth and death. Actually, the living entity has neither birth nor death, but is eternal. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The living entity never dies, even after the death or annihilation of his material body. Therefore, one should not view death with horror, nor have recourse to defining the body as soul, nor give way to exaggeration in enjoying the bodily necessities of life. Realizing the true nature of the living entity, one should move about the world free from attachment and steadfast in purpose. Purport: a sane person who has understood the philosophy of life and death is very upset upon hearing of the horrible, hellish condition of life in the womb of the mother or outside of the mother. But one has to make a solution to the problems of life. A sane man should understand the miserable condition of this material body. Without being unnecessarily upset, he should try to find out if there is a remedy. The remedial measures can be understood when one associates with persons who are liberated. It must be understood who is actually liberated. The liberated person is described in Bhagavad Gita. One who engages in uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord, having surpassed the stringent laws of material nature, is understood to be situated in Brahman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation. It is admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya that Narayan is transcendental to this material creation. As such, when one actually engages in the service of the Lord in various forms, either Narayan or Radhakrishna or Sita Ram, he is understood to be on the platform of liberation. The Bhagavatam also confirms that liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position. Since the living entity is eternally the servitor of the Supreme Lord, when one seriously and sincerely engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he is situated in the position of liberation. One should try to associate with a liberated person, and then the problems of life, namely birth and death, can be solved. While discharging devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, one should not be miserly. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. He should not unnecessarily show that he has renounced this world. Actually, renunciation is not possible. If one renounces his palatial building and goes to a forest, there is actually no renunciation, for the palatial building is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the forest is also the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If he changes from one property to another, that does not mean that he renounces. He was never the proprietor of either the palace or the forest. Renunciation necessitates renouncing the false understanding that one can lord it over material nature. When one renounces this false attitude and renounces the puffed up position that he is also God, that is real renunciation. Otherwise, there is no meaning of renunciation. Rupa Goswami advises that if one renounces anything which could be applied in the service of the Lord and does not use it for that purpose, that is called Valgu Vairagya, insufficient or false renunciation. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore everything can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Nothing should be used for one's sense gratification. That is real renunciation. Nor should one unnecessarily increase the necessities of the body. We should be satisfied with whatever is offered and supplied by Krishna without much personal endeavor. We should spend our time executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That is the solution to the problem of life and death. 48. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude toward material identity, one should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus, he can be unconcerned with this material world. Purport: it is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with persons engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. To answer this argument, it is described here that one has to associate with liberated persons not directly, physically, but by understanding through philosophy and logic the problems of life. It is stated here, samyak darshanaya buddhya. One has to see perfectly, and by intelligence and yogic practice, one has to renounce this world. That renunciation can be achieved by the process recommended in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. By the process recommended in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes. The devotee's intelligence is always in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His attitude towards the material existence is one of detachment, for he knows perfectly well that this material world is a creation of illusory energy. Realizing himself to be part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, the devotee discharges his devotional service and is completely aloof from material action and reaction. Thus, at the end, he gives up his material body or the material energy, and as a pure soul, he enters the kingdom of God. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 31st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Kapila's Instructions on the Movements of the Living Entities. Bravo! Bravissimo! God, victory! Sadhu, sadhu. Chapter 32. Entanglement and fruit of activities. The Personality of Godhead said, the person who lives in the center of household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again he acts in the same way. There are two kinds of householders. One is called the Grihamaiti, and the other is called the Grihastha. The objective of the Grihamaiti is sense gratification, and the objective of the Grihastha is self-realization. Here the Lord is speaking about the Grihamaiti, or the person who wants to remain in this material world. His activity is to enjoy material benefits by performing religious rituals for economic development, and thereby ultimately satisfy his senses. He does not want anything more. Such a person works very hard throughout his life to become very rich and eat very nicely and drink. By giving some charity for pious activity, he can go to a higher planetary atmosphere in the heavenly planets in his next life. But he does not want to stop the repetition of birth and death and finish with the concomitant miserable factors of material existence. Such a person is called a Grihamaiti. A Grihastha is a person who lives with family, wife, children, and relatives, but has no attachment for them. He prefers to live in family life rather than as a mendicant or sannyasi, but his chief aim is to achieve self-realization or to come to the standard of Krishna consciousness. Here, however, Lord Kapila Dev is speaking about the Grihamatis, who have made their aim the materialistically prosperous life, which they achieve by sacrificial ceremonies, by charities, and by good work. They are posted in good positions, and since they know that they are using up their assets of pious activities, they again and again perform activities of sense gratification. It is said by Prahlad Maharaj, Punachar they prefer to chew the already chewed. Again and again they experience the material pangs, even if they are rich and prosperous, but they do not want to give up this kind of life. Now we'll take a couple of reflections or questions, and they better be good. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
This is from Apar Gaurangi Mataji. This is session before the break.
Okay.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, dear Guru Maharaj. Please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for the wonderful discussions and answers. Could you elaborate more on how one can consciously take shelter of Krishna and devotional service instead of something else? And how one can do that in all situations?
The best way is to chant great japa. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said one shouldn't try to be a great devotee. He should try to be a good devotee, but he didn't say the next part. in order to be a good devotee, one has to chant great japa. We get our intelligence and inspiration from hearing Krishna's holy names, because they're non-different from Krishna. And if we make it our prime objective in life to chant with full vigor and attention, then Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yashavairagam Jnanam Chayarahaitukam. It's a natural way in which we get a perspective that aids us in the way that we move about the world and we don't become entangled. What's more, when we become attracted to the sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra, then it's so satisfying, we don't really need anything else. So that's the key to life. It's chanting Hare Krishna without offenses, and that requires giving it full attention. Om Tat Sat. Any other things? Yes, Prabhu?
I was just really appreciating for text 48. Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service, and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should regulate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. Just really finding that was such a nice summary of these past couple chapters. Just really appreciating that.
One should, you said, read it again?
Endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service, and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity, one should regulate his body to this illusory world through
It says relegate in my copy.
Relegate, sorry. I misread that twice.
That's all right.
One should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. But anyways, that just kind of struck me like for some reason I just felt reading all
I mean,
these.
the clause itself sounds a little confusing to me. One should relegate his body to this illusory world through his reason. Okay. I guess he's saying should categorize it as part of the material world and relegating it. It's like, oh, this body is part of the material world, I'm separate from it. Don't take it too seriously, it's all part of the Mahat Tattva. And I like the last sentence also, thus one can be unconcerned with this material world. Just consider how people become very concerned. For instance, if they get absorbed in identifying with a sports team. I've seen this, it's a universal principle. Whether, it's country playing against country, won't mention any names, but it becomes a source of great anxiety that I have to win, and when they lose, they feel demoralized and almost as if they've been personally lost. It's just it's a kind of identification, and all of those disappointments come again and again by identifying oneself with these various aspects of the material world. Okay, yes, Devavrata and then Prabhupada Priya. And I'm looking for the outside people's party. They look very effulgent, happy.
Relegate definition is to assign to appropriate place or situation on the basis of classification or appraisal.
Well, that works. Classification. Appraisal. You have the whole material world appraised. It's not really worth that much. Sorry, I can't give you anything for it because it's going to be destroyed later on. It's already been chewed. Sorry. Oh yeah. Prabhupada Priya is next.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, when we were reading all those verses about the pitfalls of association with women, I was remembering that way back in the early days when Prabhupada's disciples were young, and some disciples were I don't know what the context was exactly, but there was some service to be done, and they had to work together with the women, and they were a little concerned about that close association, and they mentioned it to Srila Prabhupada, and then Prabhupada was, I'm paraphrasing, he was kind of like, are you kidding? Association with these women will take you back to Godhead.
That was Calcutta, right?
I can't remember the context.
Well, there was an instance like that in Calcutta because it was close quarters, and Prabhupada had said that.
Yeah.
But that's what he indicated at the end also.
Yeah,
right?
I like the way Prabhupada balanced it. And it's kind of like the sense in which this concept is presented is that it's not that women are bad or men are bad, but the problem is when we view, or whoever, could be men for men or whatever, nowadays it's all mixed up, but whoever it is, the problem is not the person, it's our perception of that person as an object of sense gratification and our desire to enjoy them. That's the problem. So whoever
go back, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I go back to that phrase we heard earlier, maybe 5 days ago, when Prabhupada said so-called man and so-called woman.
Yeah.
It has that rhythm to it, but it helps to contextualize the whole thing, which is...
Yeah. And it was nice too how he mentioned that the woman in her past life was a man who became attached to a woman. So it's kind of like, don't let it happen to you, Yeah,
and then tracing it to Radha Krishna in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
It leaves nothing, there's nothing wanting after the overall explanation, albeit it is not a common explanation of the world given anywhere. This is kind of, when you read Bhagavatam and you hear these things, it gives you such a unique perspective of how the material world works, and one can then notice that it's any of these sentences taken in a public forum anywhere in America would be absolutely abhorrent, an immediate reaction to it, because there's been such a fortification around the principle of unity based on the body, that we're all the same based on the bodily conception of life, and that's a hard case to make. But the Bhagavatam unabashedly goes for the categories and said so-called man, so-called women, and here's how the material energy works, and it all comes from the spiritual world. So we have to relegate the material body to the material world. Devavrata Prabhu? Thank you very much for coming. Hare Krishna.
When I was conducting interviews for the biography of Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu, I interviewed Guru Prasad Maharaj. And at the end of the interview, him and I just started speaking about preaching. And he told me the amazing example that he gives to people in relationship to this appraisal. And he says, I'm going to give you a company which I want you to invest in, and then within 50 years you're going to lose everything you invested. So then he asked the audience, so would you invest in this company? And they said, no, of course not. And they say, well, he says that's what you're doing with the hopes of your material life.
Who gave that?
Guru Prasad Maharaj.
Oh. Well, probably gave a similar thing at a Rotary Club lecture, where he talked about a person who got a call from his stockbroker in the morning saying that I have a sure bet, you should put everything in. He puts everything in, and the broker calls back in the afternoon and says, it went skyrocketed just as I said it would, and you're now a billionaire. And then that evening, he called back and said, yeah, it all went back down again to nothing, so you lost it all. And Prabhupada gave that this is the material world, whatever you get, it'll go up and then you lose it all at the end. Sorry, I didn't mean to take away from that. it just reminded me of that. I don't know about that. I think that one was, anyway, either one of those is highly effective because nobody thinks like that. They think I'll just live forever.
And just expanding on the analogy you gave about the day, when we were reading, something came up about, I think it was in relationship to renunciation of false ego or the time factor. I forget exactly, but the thought popped up which Urmila brought up in her Prabhupada offering, where she was mentioning the lifespan of the living entity in relationship to Brahma, and it's just like.
Do you remember the figure?
I don't remember. I was trying to put it into a calculator. It was like
37 billionth of a second.
And it's
something like that.
Before you even reach a second, everything you invested is gone.
So the lifespan of a human in relationship to
Lord Brahma.
We'll just ask Siri.
He lives 311 trillion years.
Hey Siri. What is 100 years to 311 trillion years? Or I should say, am I dividing the big number to the small number? For the percentage, I do it the other way. Hey Siri, let me try it both ways. Sorry, I'll tell you right now. Don't get excited.
Okay.
What is... Hey Siri, what's 311 trillion divided into 100?
Here's what I found.
Well, just tell me. Yeah. Well, that won't help. Okay. Hey Siri, what fraction of 311 trillion is 100? Siri's jumping to conclusions here. Anyway, it's a small number. We can look it up later. Do the math.
It just
Read them and weep.
32 billionths of a second.
32 billionths of a second.
Well, but that's a year.
Just call Urmila. We've run out of time. Well, listen, nobody can leave till we finish this third canto. You ask ChatGPT. Go ahead, take the microphone.
I can read the whole thing or just read the answer?
Just read the answer. Take the mic.
Therefore, the average human life is roughly 3 trillionth of Brahma's lifespan. Yeah, 1 over 3.11 trillion.
3.11 trillionth
Yeah.
of Brahma.
Oh.
Can I give you some other figures really quick since we're over time? We're at 695. To finish the third canto, we only have to get to 780. 695, 780. We got 85 pages to go.
Haribol.
How many pages do you usually do per hour?
It depends. If they're really thick purports, it goes a lot slower, and how many times we stop. But 85 pages we could do tomorrow. And I mean, I know some of you are leaving. I was just thinking it would be nice if you heard the end of the Bhagavatam before you go. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so tell the chowkidar to make sure nobody gets out of here. I mean, we could just do our normal schedule, and it would take us both sessions to finish. What we've done before, we also could use the Bhagavatam session, but I don't want to. If somebody was already planning to come to the Bhagavatam class, We've done that before. We have a class giver for tomorrow, so we don't want to just deprive her a second time. Okay, anyway, there's not that. Oh, there are long purports. It is what it is.
Who else is leaving?
Who else is leaving tomorrow? Nobody. You can't go. Well, it's up to everybody, but I think it's a good idea if you came for the vrat and you got this far, don't go now. I'll be vigilant and go through steadily. And 85. It's doable. No, I know it's doable in 2 sessions, but I thought some people were leaving in the morning. Yes? I see. The Kadashi will be a half a day, because we're going over to the Vrindavan for Gopal Krishna Maharaj's Samadhi opening. Anyways, dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radha Govinda, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, Shri Shri Radha Raman, Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Shri Radha Sham. If you so desire, please empower us to hear the Bhagavatam constantly. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakoptarischa Kripasinabheva Chapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. We'd like to thank the Govardhan Bhaktivedanta Ashram a cappella choir for their participation tonight. And now we have the ceremonial moving of the chairs, and followed by a Damodar Ashtakam, which will start in approximately 3 minutes.